ITN News at 10 with John Suchet.
Guilty verdicts tonight on soldiers who shamed the army. Action plan to save the British beef industry. Shares soar as BT talks of a mega merger. And a giant step towards the latest in theme parks. Good evening. 3 British soldiers were found guilty tonight of brutally beating the Danish tour guide Louise Jensen to death after a drunken binge in Cyprus. They were also convicted of abducting her and of trying to rape her. The court president said the soldiers, all from the Royal Green Jackets, had used violence on her from beginning to end and then lied about it repeatedly. A few minutes ago, the deputy commander of British forces in Cyprus said the conviction affected them all, but it had been 3 individuals on trial, not the army. ITN's Robert Moore reports from Cyprus.
The 3 soldiers of the Royal Green Jackets arrived at the Cyprus court to hear the verdict in what has already become one of the island's most politically charged cases. Justin Fowler, Alan Ford and Jeff Pennell stood accused of abducting, sexually assaulting and then killing with an army spade a Danish tour guide. 23-year-old Louise Jensen was the victim, bludgeoned to death by the 3 British soldiers while she was shaking and crying with fear. The soldiers buried her beside a track near the holiday resort of Ayia Napa. It is accepted by all sides in the case the men had been drinking heavily before the attack. In court today, the family of Louise waited for the verdict, waited for justice after 19 months. The judgment has lasted late into the night here. The soldiers denied the charges, but were reduced to giving conflicting testimony and blaming each other. A short time ago, they were convicted on all charges, on abduction, conspiracy to rape, and manslaughter, bringing disgrace to their regiment and the British Army. They emerged from the court, having sat impassively through the chilling description of the assault. The judge described their accounts as utter lies. Many Cypriots have claimed the British soldiers on the island are too often drunk and involved in violent brawls. Locals have said the 3 soldiers were in the dock, but the British Army itself on trial. The Larnaca court will tomorrow sentence the men. Now they have been convicted of manslaughter, they face possible life sentences. While they serve it in the central prison here, the army will be left to try and restore its shattered reputation on the island. Robert Moore, News at 10, Cyprus.
The Agriculture Minister, Douglas Hogg, tonight announced the government's first measures to try to counter the beef scare and save farmers from bankruptcy. They're a mix of bans, including the sale of beef from cattle over 30 months old and compensation payments. Here's our political correspondent, Jackie Ashley.
Tonight, the Agriculture Minister left for the emergency debate in the Commons with a package of measures he hoped would stem the immediate effects of the crisis over beef. British beef is safe, he told MPs, but consumer confidence had clearly been damaged.
The collapse in confidence has caused great damage to the market, and this clearly threatens the livelihoods of thousands of farmers and of others in related industries.
He announced measures worth £85 million to restore confidence in British beef. They include a temporary ban on the sale of newly slaughtered cattle over the age of 30 months, premiums of £100 a head for dairy calves slaughtered before reaching 10 days old, and £35 million in extra payments to livestock farmers. At this farm in Hampshire, the moves were welcomed as a good first step, but much more was needed, according to the farmer.
It sounds like the general public will only be reassured when there's some form of culling policy for perhaps older cattle.
Tonight's measures are essentially holding measures while ministers battle furiously with Brussels to get the ban on British beef lifted. A mass slaughter of cattle has still not been ruled out, provided agreement can be reached with Europe on compensation. In the Commons earlier, there were bitter exchanges when Tony Blair accused the government of not doing enough and urged on them Labour's 8-point plan. Mr Major scorned that.
Our examination is much more fundamental than this public relations piece of nonsense from the Labour Party. They are considering votes, we are considering the industry and the national interest.
I really do not think we have ever heard anything quite so pathetic as... Would the Prime Minister please, for once, stop trying to shirk responsibility and take it.
What is pathetic is this document.
This evening, the Prime Minister left for Turin, where tomorrow he'll demand European heads of government drop the ban on British beef, while his Agriculture Minister will be trying to negotiate the same thing in Brussels. Jackie Ashley, News at 10, Westminster.
Beef sales have collapsed not only in Britain but right across the European Union. Confirmation that the scare is a Europe-wide problem. Sales are down by about 25% in France and by 60% in Germany. Our Europe correspondent Jonathan Munro reports from Brussels.
Across Europe, the stockpiles of beef are mounting. The French meat industry is taking its own measures to stem the flow of consumers. In Boulogne, farmers inspect lorries of British livestock to ensure there are no cattle aboard. Only that way, they say, can they win back their customers. Since the latest scare began, beef sales in France have dropped by up to 25%. It's twice that bad in Italy, sales down there by a half. Even more people are bypassing beef in Portugal, and it's a similar story in Germany. Both are down 60%. Such is the crisis in consumer confidence that agriculture ministers have agreed to come to Brussels on Monday for an emergency meeting. Their aim will be to reassure, but in the current climate it looks a nigh-on impossible job to persuade many consumers to go back to buying beef. Reassurance can't come soon enough for many German farmers. This herd is BSE-free. Indeed, all cases of BSE in Germany have been traced back to imported cattle. But farmers here fear that the demand for their product is now so low they could soon be forced out of business.
If the discussion above BSE continues, this will be the bankrupt for the German farmers which are producing beef.
One measure designed to rebuild demand will begin in Holland on Monday, when thousands of tons of British beef and 64,000 cattle will be incinerated. Jonathan Munro, News at 10, Brussels.
And our political editor, Michael Brunson, is in Turin, where the European summit opens tomorrow. Michael, John Major has a delicate path to tread there, doesn't he?
Indeed he does. He'll come in here tomorrow to the conference centre. It's actually an old automobile factory with its mobile there behind me. And he will be making 2 points. He's very, very angry about the worldwide ban that the European Commission imposed. And as he said in the Commons today, he'll be reinforcing his anger. He'll be reinforcing that point, he said, very vigorously, and he'll most certainly be making his feelings clear. On the other hand, Mr. Major wants money out of the Commission and out of the European Union to help the almost inevitable slaughter policy. So he's got to tread a fine line between those two. I think you'll get a reasonably sympathetic hearing. The Italian Foreign Minister, Mrs. Agnelli, said today that this is all a serious problem for John Major, and it's a serious problem for us as well, as you heard in Jonathan Munro's report.
Yes, in that report we heard from Germany. You're in Italy. What effect is the beef scare having there?
Well, I can tell you the very first thing that happened to me when I walked into the hotel tonight was I was handed this piece of paper. And it said, "Dear clients, we wish to inform our customers that neither beef nor veal coming from Great Britain will be served in our restaurants." If that's going out in the various hotels here, you can see the extent of the alarm. I'm told that there was a plan to serve Angus beef at some stage during this summit. That will now, I'm told, be replaced by Italian beef.
Thank you, Michael. A London hairdresser was awarded nearly £250,000 damages against the Metropolitan Police today. It was for wrongful arrest and assault, but Scotland Yard has confirmed that no disciplinary action is being taken against the officers involved. ITN's Colin Baker reports.
He was awarded record damages of £220,000, and it took the hairdresser's breath away. Kenneth Sue admitted he was surprised by the amount. Scotland Yard officers privately said they were stunned. 4 years ago, there was a call for police to attend what appeared to be a dispute between neighbours in this street in South London. Mr. Sue lived in the top-floor flat. The police demanded entry. Mr. Sue refused because he said they hadn't got a warrant.
They say I'm wasting their time, so started and twist my arm behind my back, give me a neck lock, and kicking me, all the blows on my face, all over my body. And I was really upset, depressing, and I've been seeing psychologists since then.
Mr. Su's allegations were investigated by the Police Complaints Commission, but were eventually rejected. The police officers involved came from this station in Streatham, and tonight Scotland Yard said the officers had not been and would not be the subject of disciplinary action.
I act for a number of clients who sue the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Force and other police forces, and in our experience it's quite normal for the Commissioner to be found against in a civil trial, but nonetheless for officers involved in that act not to be disciplined and for there to be no criminal prosecution.
Metropolitan Police say they will be appealing against the sum awarded. Colin Baker, News at 10, Central London.
50,000 people turned out to see and cheer the Queen in Brno today, the second day of her visit to the Czech Republic. She wished them prosperity. They thanked her for not going there when the country was under communism. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Owen reports.
The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh at a concert tonight in Prague, although the music was actually to be English Baroque. The highlight of the day was here, the Queen in Freedom Square in the city of Brno, packed to a degree not seen since the Velvet Revolution, the overthrow of communism in 1989. For the Queen, almost everyone in the place appeared to have taken this beautifully sunny day off, though few among the many thousands would actually have caught a glimpse of their royal visitor. The lucky few found a window or a convenient rooftop. The Queen herself was said this evening to be absolutely delighted with her reception. The Foreign Secretary Malcolm Rivkin, accompanying the Queen, was caught up in the excitement.
Absolutely fantastic, isn't it? It just shows how popular the Queen is and such good news for Britain.
So the Queen has proved to be a great crowd puller here in the Czech Republic's second biggest city as she nears the end of what her officials consider has been a very successful tour of Eastern Europe. Prince Philip, meanwhile, was on his way to a stud farm, where the animals are only bred for ceremonial purposes. The family regard for horses is well known. Seldom can the Duke have witnessed a more spectacular display of horsepower. Nicholas Owen, News at 10 in the Czech Republic.
More news still to come tonight, including a giant in the making as BT and Mercury decide it's good to talk. Why Britain's newest theme park is hoping small bricks will build big profits. And as the beef crisis grows, is back to nature the way ahead for Britain's farmers?
I think the government's got to wake up to the fact that the consumer wants to see more organic farming.
Welcome back. Britain's two biggest phone companies, BT and Cable and Wireless, confirmed tonight that they're back in merger talks. A stock exchange announcement from Cable and Wireless said exploratory discussions were being held. Shares in both companies had climbed steeply today. A merger would create the country's biggest company and give BT access to markets outside Britain. Here's our business editor, Mark Webster.
Tonight at BT's London headquarters, the announcement caught most of its own staff by surprise. A merger could produce a massive force in the global telecommunications market where BT sees its future, but it could also raise real problems at home.
Officially, BT will only say that talks are taking place between advisors from both companies. However, it's an open secret that Britain's biggest telephone operator would love to gain access to some of the markets where Cable and Wireless are prominent, particularly in Asia. The worry, however, is about the domestic market, where consumer organisations fear that a merged company could create such a giant that any competition would be stifled.
Cable and Wireless was obliged to admit in a statement that talks were underway after a big rise in its share price today. But there are worries about what it might mean for the domestic market.
Clearly BT and Mercury can't be owned by the same company, so if Mercury's going to a new owner, we want a strong owner that's going to put money in and really is going to enable Mercury to take BT on, and the more players there are in the market, the better.
The companies are two of the stock market's giants. British Telecom's valued at nearly £22 billion and employs 130,000 people. Cable and Wireless, which owns Mercury, is estimated to be worth £11.3 billion and employs 40,000 people. If they merged, they'd have assets of over £30 billion.
If we see the biggest suppliers joining together in a virtual monopoly, can the consumer expect to see lower prices when we already have among the highest connection charges in the world and, of course, very high line rental charges?
It is good news for shareholders in both companies, since share prices are likely to rise further in this heated atmosphere. With cable and wireless managers saying a merger's only a matter of time, it will create a phenomenal international phone company. Mark Webster, News at 10, The City.
The Prime Minister was making clear today that beef won't be his only concern at the European summit, which starts tomorrow in Turin. For example, he said he wasn't prepared to see Britain's opt-out on the social chapter undermined. Our diplomatic editor, James Mates, reports from Turin on the other issues on the European agenda.
It is the issue on which the people of Europe most want action. But to the leaders meeting tomorrow, the plight of Europe's 18 million unemployed will be something of an afterthought. Italian trade unionists marched through Turin this afternoon, desperate to push themselves to the top of the agenda. But it seems they'll be disappointed. For tomorrow, the talk will not be of jobs, but of institutions, of voting procedures, of preparing the union for 10 or more new members.
Europe cannot enlarge without tidying up. You cannot have a European Union of 25 members, each one exercising a veto all the time, or large numbers of additional commissioners. This needs to be looked at.
Which puts majority voting at the top of the agenda. Britain insists the veto is sacred because it alone protects British interests, but the rest could block enlargement until the British give ground on this. There's also a push to strengthen the Union's foreign and defence policies. Embarrassed at watching the Americans and NATO succeed in Bosnia, many want foreign policy now to be run from Brussels. No way, say the British.
We think it's very important for the future of Europe, not just for Britain, but the future of Europe, that the model that we argue is followed. And so we're going to be a very firm, very determined negotiator on this, so I shouldn't be looking too far for compromises.
Certainly no compromise on giving the European Parliament more powers. Germany's pushing very hard on behalf of the Strasbourg Assembly, but here Britain has a vital ally in France. What the British government would like is to limit the powers of the European Court, but on this they have no major allies and very little chance of success. The British government is not entirely alone on all of these issues, though it is clearly in a minority. What it's been unable to do is to gather around it a group of countries to form a united front with its own agenda, which means that France and Germany, who are coordinating their approach to these negotiations, are likely to get a great deal of what they want. James Mates, News at 10, Turin.
Police are investigating the deaths of a captain and his first mate on board a tanker moored off Flamborough. The men became trapped after going to check a waste tank. Their bodies will be removed when the ship docks in Teesmouth tomorrow. Labour announced a major change in its training policy today. It proposes paying £150 to each worker willing to spend £25 of their own money on training. The credit would be stored on a learn-as-you-earn smart card. The pop star Phil Collins is finally quitting the band which made him famous. He's leaving Genesis for good after 20 years as its lead singer. The group says the split is amicable. Collins is leaving to concentrate on his solo career. We reported earlier the first government measures to try to restore confidence in beef after the brain disease scare 8 days ago. But our special report tonight is on what farmers themselves could do. Might a changeover to a more natural type of farming win public support and still give farmers a living? Norman Reese's report starts on an organic farm in Devon.
Feed time at Tim Budden's farm, and not a chemical in sight. The 100 pedigree cattle are fattening on homegrown clover-rich hay. Tim has 300 acres. He decided to go organic as a student. He was disturbed at how much emphasis was made at agricultural college on chemicals to increase production.
We were injecting these animals with female hormones into the males, male hormones into the females. I had to do it as a student. I just thought, well, this is just crazy. We don't need the beef anyway. I have to say that I don't want to eat beef with hormones in it, do you?
Tim and his wife Jo also farm 850 sheep and 40 acres of corn. They're not idealists, they're realists. They make a profit and charge premium prices. They feel organic methods have been fully vindicated.
We were producing all this food, and yet people didn't want that sort of food. They wanted food that they could trust, that they could feel was good for them, that they could eat with confidence.
It's claimed there's never been a case of BSE in cattle born and raised organically. But such is the depth of the scare, supermarkets have cancelled orders even for the Buttons beef. Only about 1/3 of 1% of Britain's farms are organic. Their main outlet, special shops, special customers.
If I eat rubbish, then I'm going to feel like rubbish.
We can't trust the food that we're sold. I've got 4 children and I watch what I eat and I'm very careful about what I feed them.
For many, it's a case of going back to how things used to be on the land.
I've aimed at rearing good-bodied animals capable of producing improving yields per head, mainly on grass or grass products.
But this was actually a time of wide-scale shortages, when many foods, now taken for granted, were unavailable or high-priced luxuries. In the cattle markets this week, even the empty cattle pens couldn't persuade most farmers there's much to be gained from turning the clocks back.
We went back to the war times where we couldn't feed our population. So we were given the technology, we were given fertilizers.
Should you not feed the population if you followed organic methods? It's all fine on the face of it, but it's just not possible to do it.
Organic farmers concede some foods would be scarce if everyone went their way. Pigs and poultry are examples, but that, they say, is a small sacrifice.
If the cost of intensive agriculture is threats to human health, BSE, pesticides in our food and our water, vanishing wildlife, then that is not sustainable. That price is too high.
And that's what they're saying down at the Buttons farm. They believe public opinion is finally on their side.
I think the government's got to wake up to the fact that the consumer wants to see more organic farming and more research towards organic farming, and we've been banging our heads against a brick wall long enough. I think our time has come.
But it'll be consumers who'll decide whether organic herds like this are indeed the future of British farming. Norman Rees, News at 10, North Devon.
Sport. The former England and Middlesex cricketer John Embury says he's turning down the chance to be England's coach this summer. He's told officials at Lord's that he won't abandon his new 4-year contract as coach to Northamptonshire. His withdrawal leaves Lancashire's David Lloyd as favourite for the post. Tonight's headlines again. 3 British soldiers have been found guilty of killing a Danish tour guide after a drunken binge on Cyprus. They'll be sentenced tomorrow. And the government has announced a series of measures to counter the beef scare and save farmers from bankruptcy. And finally, Britain's newest theme park opens to the public tomorrow. It's Legoland in Windsor, and it's built on a deliberately small scale. Andrew Simmons reports.
London as it's never been seen before, and it turns children into giants. £85 million worth of plastic bricks make up Britain's latest theme park, a miniature masterpiece. But there's nothing small about the price, £54 for a family of 4. And there are no white knuckle rides here, so what's going to attract the grown-ups?
It is an expensive day out, there's no question, but it's a special day out, so it's something that people do once or twice a year. We don't expect them to come every day, but they will find it affordable and good value for 6-7 hours of entertainment.
More than 12 million people visit theme parks each year, and the competition is tough. Alton Towers, theme park leader, takes well beyond 3 million people on its white-knuckle rides every year. Chessington World of Adventure attracts more than 1.5 million, and Thorpe Park nearly 1.25 million. Legoland intends to bring in 1.4 million visitors in its first year, hoping for no hiccups like tube train breakdowns or the teething troubles of Eurostar. Andrew Simmons, News at 10.
And that's the news. Good night.
Hello, good evening. Well, as far as the weekend goes, we're expecting things to turn out dry with some sunshine around, but widespread frosts at night. Then on Saturday, there'll be patchy rain with wintry showers getting into the far northeast. Come Sunday, this will spill down the eastern fringes with some sleet in it. Now, our Met Office wind flow chart explains why we've got that fine weather, high pressure in charge virtually throughout the country, and with only fairly light winds. All in all, it ought to feel quite pleasant. Now back to tonight, and we've the showers in the southeast, some wintry ones as well, but those are fading away, but wintry showers in the very far north. Elsewhere, a widespread frost with temperatures down as low as -4. We get off to a fine, dry, bright start tomorrow morning, a good deal of sunshine around, but certainly cloudier in the far northeast, along with showers, wintry showers on the higher ground. And then during the course of the day, well, these spill down the eastern fringes. Elsewhere, though, dry and pleasant. With our temperatures on the whole coming in at 7s to 8s, mid-40s, pegged back there on the Norfolk coast, and a high of 10 in the Glasgow area, 50 Fahrenheit. Good night.
Sponsored by Powergen, generating electricity, whatever the weather.